Badram karnebi shrnuyama devaha Badram pashye makshabiryajatraha Stirairangaihi tushtuvagam sastanubhihi Vyashema devahitam yadayuhu Svastina indro vardhashravaha Svastina pusha vishwavedaha Svastina starkshyo arishtanemihi Svastino brahaspatir dadhatu Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So we've stopped at verse 13. How does the self imagine itself? And it says, the Lord brings to manifestation all empirical worlds which are existing within his mind. Turning outwards, he creates the ordained objects. This is how the Lord brings about the universe. So when he says he creates the ordained object, turning outwards, he projects using his power, his avarana. Avarana Shakti and Vikshepa Shakti. And now that the world is projected, you find yourself in this world and you try to figure things out, right? So naturally we have to start an inquiry to come to understand this reality. You see, does reality care whether you understand reality or not? No, reality is reality. It's like if I take this glass and this glass inside is tea, or we'll just take a glass, forget about the tea. And this is a glass made of, well, glass, okay? And my job, suppose this is the reality. This is what we are speaking about as the reality. And this is presented towards me, and I behold it. I behold this glass cup. And there is something about it that I don't know. For instance, like how do they create the curves and how do they make it round and how do they design this whole thing? So now, as long as I don't understand the engravings and the purpose and the function of this cup, then I have no choice but to use a little bit of knowledge that I have about other similar objects, and then I will just project that onto the cup. Well, maybe it's there to put on your head, maybe it's to play ball, with someone. Maybe it's to draw, you can make little paintings with it or whatever it is. So this means if I don't have the knowledge of the reality, then I will approximate like, okay, this is what I can do with it or I cannot do with it. Maybe it's an evil cup. Maybe it wants some to do some bad things to me. Or maybe it's a blessing. Maybe it's a blessing sent from the gods. But look how complex that story got. It's just a glass. You see, it's just a glass. So what we say in Sanskrit is that knowledge, what is knowledge? When you say knowledge, how do you align that internal knowledge of what you have and it's perfectly aligned to the reality? We call knowledge Vastu Tantram. And Vastu Tantram has a contrast to another word in Sanskrit. Before I move there, is there any questions about this? I'll just pause Vastu Tantram and Purusha Tantram. We spoke about the reality, Maya. We now know where Ishvara fits. The Jiva asked who created this world, and we say Ishvara did. And then what is Ishvara? Brahman in association with manifest Maya is Ishvara. And then we said this Jiva carries ignorance, which is called Mula Avidya. And that ignorance will cause you to see yourself as a jiva, no more, no less. Thereby, you will start to look in this prapancha for things to satisfy you, to fulfill you. You will, kind of go into this mode of, what do they say? Marry, eat, and drink, right? These are the three big ones. So that's life. And so now, until this jiva is shown that its reality is much bigger than just a single jiva, it will continue to live within this prapancha, looking for objects to kind of appease itself. Now, what Vedanta says is, in order to understand this entire reality that we've mapped out here, I have to know the glass exactly for what it is, not for what I want it to be. Therefore, glass, we say, is Vastu Tantra. So Vastu is an object, dependent. In order to understand this glass as it is and not metal, right? This is not metal, this is glass. So I have no choice but to make my understanding. That means my understanding is dependent on the nature of the object. What's the nature of this object? Is it metal? No, it is glass. So this means whatever image I have in my mind, in the mind of the jiva, like a brain, if you put a glass in there, that glass has to reflect perfectly according to this glass. And it cannot be metal, it cannot be or gold, it has to be transparent and glassy. So when there is a complete alignment between what is in my mind and out there in the world, we call that knowledge. Therefore, when it comes to discovering about the reality, that's why I asked the question, does reality care about whether you know of reality or not? And the answer is no. The glass doesn't care whether you call this metal, does it? Or gold. If I say it's gold, well, then that's my loss, because I'll lose friends. I'll say, hey, let me drink from a golden cup, and you'll think I'm crazy, and you will kind of not want to associate with that. So the more I'm aligned with the reality, that means my knowledge is dependent on the nature of the object. Now look at this. Do I have any choice? Does my free will have any say in what this is? Can I apply my free will and say, you know what, I have choice, and therefore I'm going to call this a golden cup? So when it comes to understanding the nature of reality, there is no question of free will. I cannot choose what I want reality to be. Because if I choose this to be a metal cup, the truth is it's not a metal cup. So in fact, by me applying free will and choosing that I want this to be a metal cup, I actually lose out. I distanced myself away from reality. And how is that distance felt in your life? As discomfort, as something's off in my life. So the more we have discomfort towards the Lord, about the nature of reality, about the universe, about creation, the more I'm holding images in my mind which are out of alignment with the original object. So I have to now go through the pramana and remove incorrect notions that this cup has gold. I have to remove that gold, cross it out. That this cup is sent from the gods. I have to remove that until I just have pure cup in my mind. Now, when it comes to an action, doing any kind of action, we call this Purusha Tantra. Again, Tantra on this side is dependent. When it comes to an action, no problem. The Purusha means person, can be involved. So if I want to, for instance, when it comes to an action, I can choose to do an action. Is that free will? You can choose to do an action. It's a choice. I can choose not to do an action. I can choose to do something different that I've not done before. I can choose to create something new that involves an action. I can choose to purify something, like clean something up, clean up my mind. That's an action. Maybe clean up my body, make my body stronger. That's an action. I can choose not to clean up my body and just let it, go according to its process. I can modify my body by making it bigger, smaller, whatever it is. I can create things in this world. So all of these options, purify, create, modify, I can reach also. I can say, I'm going to reach that tree over there. That's an action. So when it comes to action, it's always dependent upon free will, Purusha. So why did I point this out? What's the significance of this to what we're doing in this class? The significance is when it comes to discovering the reality. The question original was, Does reality care whether you are aligned with reality or not? No. But as long as I am not aligned with reality, I suffer. So when it comes to any form of knowledge, like the Upanishads, there's no question of the person sitting down and saying, I want this class to be chanting. I want this class to be, about devotion. I want this class to be about, feeling good. Because who's making that choice? Who's making that request? You are. So now you're going into Purusha Tantra. But what is the class disclosing, revealing? What is the class showing? It's showing the reality. And we want to know the waking state as it is, or rather than what I want the waking state to be for me. And according to Gaudapada, we continue the objections about the reality of the waking state in verse 14. Chitta kalaha hi ye antaha tu dvaya kala cha ye bahi kalpita eva te sarve vishesha na anya hetuka. Objects that exist internally. So this is in the mind. As long as the thought of them lasts, and objects that are perceived outside and can be recognized at 2 points in time, that means beginning and end, are all but kalpita, imagined, projected, not existing independently of the self. There is no other basis for differentiating one from the other. So once again, what's happening here is there are two people involved. There is a person who's there is a waker who keeps on coming back and saying the waking is real. The waking is real. But Gaudapada says, no, it's not. No, it's not. So we are now having a debate between whether it's real or whether it's not real. And so the objector says, no. Do not place the waking and the dream in the same basket. Don't say they're the same order of reality, because, he says, with dream, you imagine things. That means the dream depends on your mind. And as long as your mind is projecting, the dream for that long is real. But in the waking state, tomorrow I come back to this class is exactly the same. That gong bell is still there. I don't need to imagine that. So clearly, the waking has to have higher reality than the dream. Because the waking is sustained, it's stable, it doesn't need me to keep on imagining. It doesn't depend on my mind. For that reason, there is a certain continuity and permanence to the waking state. Thus, waking is superior. That's the objection. Now, very interesting counter-argument. Before I say so, how would you object that? Because I just gave you the objection. Okay, so my question now is, how would I counter this and say, no. The waking is no more real than the dream.
Because in the dream, it's as real. In the dream, I am as real. In the dream real, as I'm here waking real. The sense of reality is the same.
Excellent. Anything else?
Yeah, I was also thinking everybody looks through a filter, so which one is real?
See, we don't need everybody to be alive. We only need one person, and the world will have certainly much more continuity than the dream. Whether we are filtering things or not, there is still an objective reality to that bell. For example, my brain creates color. That's a very different color than my brain sees. There's a slight difference between what my brain sees and the actual color of the world. everyone's brains actually creates color based on the frequency of light. So there is a certain objective reality to that. It doesn't need me to project or not project. Okay, but we're not allowed to use the words mithya now. We need to speak simple language that a 12-year-old can understand.
This gong has a beginning. Started somewhere.
It has a beginning.
Yeah, it started somewhere.
Okay, that's closer.
And it's gonna finish somewhere. If the woodworm eats the wood, it's done. And it can fall into bits.
Now I'm going to counter that. I'm going to say, but so does a dream object appear and disappear,
Yeah.
and it has a reality to it. But you said that this gong in the waking appears and disappears.
Yeah.
So now what's the difference if they're both appearing and disappearing? So
There is difference. The dream is individual, and this we can share. But still, what's the same? I have to counter the thing, eh? So what's the same is that it appears and disappears, and I see it and I don't see it. That is also
okay.
a similarity of it. Because
Okay.
I'm not looking at this gone 100 years.
Okay. So in other words, it's not going to be. It's not absolutely real on the basis of that it's going to degrade. It's going to fall apart.
That's one reason.
Yeah.
Another reason is that you are not permanently looking, so it will disappear also in your...
Excellent. Anything else? John got it 100% correct. So in the commentary, it says, wait a minute. You cannot be a judge from the standpoint of the waking. You need a judge because a judge in the waking state will say the exact same thing that a judge in the dream state will say. The judge in the waking will say, this is absolutely real. But the final verdict in the dream is also going to be, this is absolutely real. So judges standing in their respective states have no authority to make any claim about their state. So what do you need? You need a third judge that looks at both of the judges, both of the states, puts the two states out, and you need to observe it from a third perspective and say, here's the waking and here is the dream. And if you look at both of those states, from the standpoint of the dream over here, nothing lasts. It displaces the waking object. From the standpoint of the waking, nothing lasts. It displaces the dream objects. So now how can you say that anyone is real? Because from the standpoint of the waking, everything is absolutely real. Standpoint of the dream, everything is absolutely real. So how can one judge be right over the other? Therefore, the only way out of the argument is to look at it from the standpoint of Turiyam. Okay, verse 15. The appearance is totally different. Avyaktaha eva ye antaha tu sputaha eva cha ye bahi kalpitaha eva te sarve vishesha tu indriya antare. Okay, those objects that are seen vaguely within the mind and those that are perceived clearly outside are all kalpita, imagined, projected. The difference lies in the organs of perception alone. So it's saying here that you cannot compare dream to a waking. Why? Because dream is hazy. It's very vague. It's fragile. Right? It's all fluidy. Whereas the waking is stable, it's concrete, it's solid. Now Gaudapada says, you see, there's a little problem with that statement, because yes, it's true. In the dream, those objects that are projected, kalpita projected, they come from your memory, for sure. Yeah. And these objects that we see are seen by our five senses. Now, our five senses are designed to make the world, right, seem solid, right? The world is solid, and our senses are designed to see a solid world. So, see, I would bet someone who made this objection has probably not gone into other states before, like a drug-induced state, where a drug can make something even more real than even the waking state. So Gaudapada says, just because a dream is hazy and vague, and the world is solid, the waking is solid and firm, it does not grant this waking state a more real than the dream. Because you can be in a different world altogether, and for you, from your standpoint, you can be daydreaming or put yourself in some intoxicated state, and for you, that world will be way more real than the waking. Therefore, once again, on the basis of solidity or flexibility of the two states, that argument does not hold up. In fact, if you listen to NDEs, near-death experiences, those who had cardiac arrest and come back, so many cases, like you can see YouTube channels, it's just endless, just pouring out, because now we have this machinery. At this time, when the argument was made, we couldn't resuscitate an individual. So all you had was this three states. But now we have, right, even after the person's heart stops, 17 minutes later sometimes. And we can say their stories, they say, well, the world instantly, this world was like as unreal as a dream. That world that I was in, whatever that world they're describing, was way more real than this one. You see? So reality always changes depending on what standpoint you're looking at it from.
If Gaudapada had been living in our times, he could also have argued that the object appears solid, but in reality there are just atoms and electrons just flying around, so nothing is really solid, but it's all in motion.
And you know what's really interesting? How without science, they were able to figure this out. We are so lucky today with the science models and quarks and so on. This whole model on the board that we've been using, Satya Mithya, that was borrowing from science. What did they have? They had just a pot and clay and probably some... and then you had to have a lot more faith. Yeah, but what does, clay, reduce into? Now, the other argument to this is, even if the first argument fails, you can still use this argument. You can say that even if the dream, or you want to say your so-called waking, is more real than the dream, you can now use another argument, and you can say, once again, that doesn't really make any difference, because everything about your dream is your mind. But your mind is made of knowledge and power, isn't it? Okay? But so is, through a Satyamiti analysis, the world, also made of knowledge and power. So we're just speaking of merely knowledge. It's just knowledge and power taken on different forms. Like different, on the same screen, you have 3 movies playing. So how can you now compare one knowledge and power versus another knowledge and power? It's like comparing 0 and 1 versus 0 and 1. There's nothing to compare. It's zeros and ones. So both the waking state arrives, the dream state arrives. The dream state moves away the waking moves away the dream. They're both removable. They both they need the other to be moved away for the waking to shine its glory. But what is real doesn't need anything to be moved away. It's like trying to move away the table to reveal the wood. You don't have to do that. The wood is through and through the entire table. Therefore, what is real does not depend on something being absent. Understand? What is real does not depend on your thoughts being absent. What is real does not depend on time. So it's illogical to say that I am unenlightened. It's illogical to say that I don't have consciousness. That means that in the future I will one day have this reality. But the final reality means it's true even right here. And if it's true right here, right now, it must be accessible for you. because nothing can cover it. If something can cover it, it means it is not the absolute truth. You see, right now the dream is covered, isn't it? Because it's not here. And during the dream, the waking is covered, isn't it? But you cannot cover the presence in whom the waking is revealed and the presence in whom the dream is revealed. Okay, let's see what verse 17 says. The rope snake analogy for projection. So, how does appearance come? This verse will explain. Anishchita yatha raju andhakare vikalpita sarpa dhara adhibhi bhavaihi tatvat atma vikalpitaha. As a rope lying in darkness, whose nature is not well ascertained, is imagined or mistaken to be a snake or a line of water, or whatever, a branch, so also is Atman imagined in various ways. When it says the word imagined, what do you think it means, imagined? When something is projected, what does that mean? Okay, and what is superimposing?
The image of the snake when it's really a rope.
Okay, great. But what's doing here the superimposing according to this chart?
Putting the reality on something that is not absolutely real.
And what is doing that? In Vedanta, we call that the buddhi. Yeah? So your buddhi projects. Now, what is inside the buddhi? Both ignorance and knowledge, isn't it? So, knowledge and ignorance. Now, to the proportion to how much ignorance you have in respect to an object, to that proportion you will project. So if I don't have a lot of knowledge about the rope, I've never seen a rope, then to that degree, to how many ropes I've seen, to that degree, there is a chance or likelihood of me mistaking the rope for a snake. Suppose you're working in a rope factory and you've seen all ropes in the world, every color, like, boat ropes and climbing ropes and all sorts of ropes. So that means you're an expert at ropes. And so you're walking, being an expert in ropes, with your friend during twilight. And there's a little bit of sun, so you don't really see completely, but just enough to walk your way. And your friend, who works in oh man, that's perfect. Okay, your friend is a snake farm assistant, right? And they know all about snakes. For them, it's, everything looks like a snake. So they're walking, right? Now, it's really funny. They don't have ignorance of the snakes, right? They've got knowledge of snakes. But because they have so much knowledge about one particular area in life and not about others, so for them, it tends to become the dominating force on earth, right? What a snaky salesman, what a snaky woman, what a snaky man, what a snaky meal, right? For them, everything's snakes. So for them, they're walking with you and they see genuinely, from their standpoint, they see a snake. Now, is there actually a snake there? Is there actually a snake? Suppose when they finally see the rope, can you say that the snake went away? Can you say that? No, because the snake was never there to begin with. So can you say then, when you throw the torchlight on that not a snake, on that rope, what happens in their mind in that moment? What have you done for them? You have shunned their ignorance. You have shunned their projection. Now, we started out with ignorance. So because there is ignorance of the rope, what follows avidya, ignorance, according to this projection? So what's the order first? Avidya of whatever it is, filling the blanks. And what follows is atyasa. Atyasa or atyaropa. Andrea said superimposition. Atyaropa. Okay, both of them just mean superimposition. superimposition. Now, that superimposition for that friend, suppose you haven't walked with them, they're on their own. How real is that fear for them? It's absolutely real. How genuine is their expression towards the rope? It's genuine. So now they go home and they say, this world is full of, some magic is going on. Ropes or branches, they're not even going to say that. That's not what they saw. They're going to say, I am so unlucky. The Lord is punishing me. I was just minding my own business and I'm seeing snakes everywhere, And so they create a complex from this. And that complex, owing to their avidya, becomes a dominating force in their life. And so they build a narrative around this. So now, what do you think is that light, that torchlight in our tradition? The knowledge. The knowledge serves as the torchlight after which that world, for you the world is a snake. World is a snake. All that is here is Brahman. I don't have that knowledge, so I have no choice but to see the world as the world and thus respond accordingly, or see myself as an individual and go through the pains and ills of that. So thereby, by going through that knowledge, you say, now that I know what is to be known, I can engage in an inquiry and remove my, ignorance of what, I am. Now, here's a question for you. What is the most available thing in the world? What's even more available than the body? No, it's not the body, because the body is not available in the waking. Space, you can not experience space in samadhi. There's no sense of space anymore. What's even more available than space? That which obtains in the 3 periods of time. Okay, that which you cannot negate. So if that which you cannot negate is most available to everyone, and I do not know the nature of that which is most available to me, so here we're comparing consciousness to the rope. You see? Did I have knowledge of the rope? No, that's why I saw the snake. Do I have knowledge of Atma? No. Which is why we impute so many ideas onto Atma. Someone says I'm inadequate, that's snake number 1. Someone says I'm big, that's snake number 2. So we make all sorts of ideas. I am tall, I am short, I am mortal, and so on. All of them are mistakes. And all of them remain as long as you do not investigate the nature of your I. That means as long as I do not know the nature of the rope, as for that long, I will keep seeing the rope as a snake. As long as I do not know the nature of Atma, for that long, to that degree, I will keep on imputing things onto myself. In the spiritual field, perhaps we impute peace. The self is peace. The self is a doer. The self is an enjoyer. So let's give more enjoyable activities to the self, right? Let's give it upasanas. Let's give it bhakti. Let's give it 10,000 things to make this self bigger. Because to you, the self is an enjoyer, a doer. So therefore, you want to expand the enjoyer and the doer. So, what is superimposition? Is superimposition real? Absolutely real? No. So if superimposition is not absolutely real, then what is a superimposition?
As though superimposed.
It's as though it's superimposed, from your standpoint it's definitely real. It's as though superimposed, but what is superimposition? What is superimposition of the snake onto the rope? What is that? It's an error, yeah?
Putting your desires or fears upon an object.
Putting a desire. And what is it? And what is a desire? Where's the desire coming from? The buddhi. And what have you done in your buddhi to see, to project, to superimpose?
Imagination.
And what caused you to imagine? something onto something else.
They confuse reality with the situation.
Right, so in other words, the reality you confuse with something else, but what caused you to make that confusion? What caused you to mistake you for this body-mind? Mistake this world, mistake Brahman, who you are, for this world. What causes that? Ignorance. Okay. And ignorance again is coming from the buddhi. So what is ignorance? It is a conclusion, a false conclusion. That's all it is. Conclusion. So what are we doing then? We're just changing conclusions about the world. It's that simple. It's not magical. For instance, somebody's late at work, and the boss, is angry at you. And why are they angry? Why are they projecting anger onto you? Because they have concluded that you must not care about the work. You're trying to cut corners, but then you tell them the truth. You throw light onto the matter, and then what happens? They go, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't know that there was a genuine, car accident, and then you just had no other way." So therefore, we are changing conclusions about the nature of reality. Now, suppose for a slight moment, your conclusion is close to Atma. Suppose you make a conclusion about who you are, but it's not who you are, but it's very, very close. What do you think is going to happen?
You're going to fill in the gap.
Okay, and you will live in that gap for some time. And for how long would that gap last? It cannot last forever, because you're always working in the world, and someone's always going to challenge you, and you're forced to respond and see if there's any blind spots in you. Suppose you think you got this knowledge, but it's not it. It's like 99.9% there. What's going to happen is you will feel like you got it, and it will last for a while. You'll be okay for a while, but eventually something in life will come up, and it will show you that there is more to know. This is not it, and it will be a big like a big knock on the head. So life really has a way to show us where our blind spots are. You really don't have to worry about that. Yeah. So this is what happens sometimes. We get this practice, and we feel like this big person, or like floating above the ground. And you're like, you have empathy for people now. You're very huggy, and you say, "This is it. This is it. I have reached it. Finally, this is what it's about." And I can see the grace, people, divinity, in this airy fairy language. You've heard all of that, right? And as life, kind of shows you more things, and slowly you get back to the ground, and you don't like that at all, because here we're up there, and life just keeps on pulling you down here, and I don't like that, because I'm coming back down to the reality, and I'm starting to realize I've got more work to do, that all of that wasn't really it. There's much more to do, and nobody wants that. Everyone likes to believe like I finally, came to the end, and it's all now finally finished, and yes, I got there. So life will show you, and when it does, then in fact, the person just is going to, an intelligent person will continue to learn, continue to listen to the Upanishads. So most of us don't have to worry about that. Yeah. But the point is, the learning never stops. That's the only indicator of a qualified learner. Learning never stops. Isn't it funny or interesting? The more something intimate is, the less you know it. For instance, I can study about ants, and I can be an expert in ants, how insects build those, those caves underground and make that air circulation. I can be an expert at that and fascinate you at it, because it's very far. But the closer we get to ourselves, how well do you know your body? Where's your spleen? Where's your premolars? Where's the kidneys? The point is, the more something is closer to us, the less we know about it. My own body that I carry, that I call my body, I don't even know my body. I have to give it to somebody else who I've never met before. Because it's so intimate. Then what is the most intimate? If the body is really intimate, what's even more intimate than the body? The mind. Yeah, so now you can imagine why we want to surround ourselves by people, by situations, by entertainment, by foods, by all good things, because there is no other way to manage the mind than to have the environment do that for me. That's what the environment wants from me, and I want that from the environment. And on the outside, it looks like one big party, but actually, for the most part, and people justify it as I'm just having fun. But the truth is, you're already fun. You are already fun. You are already contentful, as you are. What about the self? The most intimate, which is why it's the least talked about thing in the world. The least known, the most distant, the most uncomfortable. Even if we talk about our own body, we talk about inside of our body. It's like, ew, huh? Your own body, ew. Then what to say of the self? If I don't want to talk about the body, the inside of the body, never mind the outside. Outside is just like 1/100th of the total body, just the skin. Then what to say about the self? The most uncomfortable topic to say. I am out of here. The self, whew. Strange, isn't it? So it takes a lot of courage to talk about things that are very, very intimate to you.
So how common it is, you think? Is there a reason?
Reason for what?
That it's so hard to talk about intimate things.
Well, perhaps because, if you have a partner in your life, or let's use another example, those things that are close to you, we take them for granted. Because it's so close to me, I don't have to worry about it. Because it's always here, it's always safe, and so everything else external becomes louder, because I know it's going to leave me one day, so all my focus is on towards objects that are coming and going. But the body, hey, this is always with me. I don't have to worry about the body. So just on the basis of this foolish idea that the body is always with me, on the basis of that, I say, no, it's okay. The body's right here. I got you, friend. You're not going anywhere, arm. You're right here where you are. But that, hey, that can go away tomorrow. So all my attention goes on that. Now, what about the self? What about awareness? That ain't going anywhere. No reason to attend to. Maybe that's why. Okay, now how do I address this avidya and atyasa? So we talked about the two, first comes avidya and then atyasa. Do you see now why we see the world as the world? Because of avidya. We've never gotten the pramana before. Because of that, we project onto the reality. Onto yourself, you project all sorts of ideas. So that's the order. Now, what's the solution? Verse 18. Knowledge removes the error. Nishchitayam yatha rajavam vikalpaha vinivartate rajuhu eva iti cha advaitam tatvat atma vinishchayaha. Yeah, as all misconceptions about the rope go away and the rope alone remains when the real nature is ascertained in the form it is nothing but a rope, so also is the definite knowledge about the nature of Atman. Okay, so the snake appears. For you, there's a snake. Can you drive that snake away? Can you scare that snake away? Can you beat that snake to death? Can you seduce that snake by a flute? Can you entice it with food? So look at this. I'm trying to beat it. I'm trying to entice it. I'm trying to seduce it. But what is really there? A rope. So everything I'm doing is completely waste of time. Where light is required, no other means is going to help. The only solution is to throw the light of knowledge onto that which is causing me to see what it's not. That's it. There's no other solution. Light. It's that simple. And because each person sees something different, there are 5 people now, suppose, not one, and there's no rope expert anymore, so 5 random people. One of them sees a rope. No, they don't see a rope. They see a snake. Someone else sees a wire. Somebody sees a branch. Somebody sees a cloth. And what else looks like a snake?
Belt.
A belt. Okay. So this means all 5 of them have created duality, and there's only one rope there. So what will the belt guy do? They will try to solve according to belt remedies. So they will go look for belt remedies, wire remedies, cloth remedies. So they will all bring their remedies together, and they will, for how long would they use those remedies to remove the belt or the snake? For how long would they use those remedies? Forever. Because what's the only solution? The light. You see what happens in the spiritual field? We see on top of reality, we impute different notions, and we say, the self is to be reached in the future. And I'm going to provide you a remedy, chant. The self is something that's expensive, it's love. And I'm going to provide you a beautiful song to open up your heart. What else have you heard? The self is in the 7th dimension, and I have to, have a guru to help me access that dimension.
Blue light of the lotus.
Pure light.
Blue light of the lotus.
Ah, blue light of the lotus. Okay, the blue light of the lotus. And thus I have to, now I have to look for the blue lotus, and I will maybe surround myself with blue lotuses, and maybe even imagine, a blue lotus flower in my head.
Or another one is that you fly above the floor like half a meter.
Yeah, levitate. Wow.
In total darkness, there's also no snake.
In total darkness, there is
Also no snake.
nothing.
In total darkness.
No snake.
No snake, no rope.
No.
No, you do see a rope, because darkness here represents ignorance.
And what about nothing? There is no self.
Yes, that's also superimposition. Nothing. So nothing, if there was nothing, then... Okay, look, if it was nothing, then who would want to attain moksha? If at least now I'm something. So this means moksha will be nothing. That will be the end of this person who I dearly care for. And I want to end this person for whom everything has been about. The entire universe has been about this person here. And now moksha is about ending this dear person for some totally different person who I couldn't care less about. That's moksha? No thanks. So therefore, moksha cannot be ever gaining something new. Because that would involve the end of you right now. That would be fearful. I would then fear moksha. That I have to die to give birth to some other person. No thanks. What about me? What do you mean, which me? Yeah, so whoever me, I think I am right now, suppose like me the seeker, right? There's probably a vague definition for the seeker what the me means. So that means that me has to end, and then I project some other me is going to either get added onto me, or this me has to die and give way to some other bigger me. The point is, what I really said is, moksha cannot be the end of me, the end of I. Why would you want to end you?
But what is moksha?
What is moksha? It's just the freedom from this idea that I am, burdened by these notions, burdened by life, burdened by death, burdened by time, burdened by being judged after death, burdened by, having to carry these emotions, and they're all mine, and, this brain is kind of decreasing and I'm decreasing. It's just the freedom from these notions that I've imputed onto myself. That when the brain decreases, I have decreased. When the life goes down, I have gone down. When the body is tired, I am tired. These are all notions belonging and realities belonging to the body-mind. Moksha is just the freedom, the cognitive freedom from the idea that this belongs to me. Simple. See, that me is not touched. We're not touching the me. The me is already there. We're just removing these, as though it's stuck and mixed up with all these other notions. Mortality is mixed with me. Smallness is mixed with me. Smartness of the buddhi is mixed with me. Memory, poor memory is mixed with me. So you say, oh, I have a poor memory. I am dying. I am inadequate. These are all things of the body and the mind. So moksha is just the acceptance. These things belong to Andre, not me.
It's also freedom from the person.
Freedom from the person, freedom from the instrument, freedom from, the causal body, the subtle body, the physical body, freedom from the waker, from the dreamer, and the sleeper.
It's kind of a paradox. I would say freedom is moksha is for the person, and then but moksha is freedom from the person.
Yeah, freedom from.
That's a paradox. No?
Yeah, freedom from the person.
So, we talked about two types of avidya, mula vidya and
Tula avidya, yeah. Primary ignorance and secondary ignorance.
so in terms of all these notions we are talking about, they're all stula vidya, right? So the only way to remove that stula vidya is to first understand or remove the mula avidya to get to remove that. Is that so?
You can say that there is a degree of removal of Tula avidya. So much so that your mind is ready to accept this knowledge. It's ready to not run away. It's ready to stay and think about it. And in so doing, it removes mula avidya. Yeah. So Tula avidya is just basically the person has to get cleaned up, mature up. Mm.
Nothing sticks anymore, even your personality.
Nothing sticks, yeah, nothing sticks. That means whatever the person goes through, there's a shock absorber, because you know that the person is going through this. It cannot be stopped. It is Ishvara's design, and let it go through that. And thus the person does the best that they can, because they know they're just an instrument of Ishvara. There's no one to gain anything or lose. Before, there was always a person who's got something to gain, something to lose, and so all of their actions were based on an agenda. I'm going to donate to gain recognition. I'm going to teach to improve my knowledge. I'm going to give you something so that you can give me something back. That gain or loss goes away. So the person entirely just does without any sense of wanting to be thanked or criticized. It's just an innocent, right? The person is just doing what they're good at. So that means the whole agenda goes away. Yeah, because the agenda always belongs to the body and the mind. The body and the mind is the agenda person, the agency. And as long as that agency is mixed up with I, then I have something to gain or lose. Yeah. So actions get purified, purpose, intention gets purified, and the person's just a lot more freer to do what needs to be done. Before, oh no, I want my cake too. I want my slice of cake too, okay? Everyone's having fun, and I'm just an instrument of Ishvara. I don't think so. Yeah. Now, there's no notion like that, right? Like, find me the person. Right now, gladly, in fact, there's no other choice. But because you were always an instrument of Ishvara, the person's own agency kept on resisting that. And for that reason, suffering ensued every single day. Because the person was basically guided by the flow, like a river, in one direction, according to one's talents and their given purpose. And inside, there was always that person said, let me step outside of the flow on the riverbank. Let me set up a little picnic table, call over, put up some TV, some music, some entertainment, and then I'm going to stay there just one more day. And then 30 years go by, and a person reassesses their life, and they're just been standing on the riverbank for 30 years. They got out of the flow by the time they were 5 or 6, when other kids introduced them to other options. And they're like, oh, that's interesting. Let me come out of the flow. And then I see, this is kind of getting boring. It's just a picnic, and here's a river. Life is just flowing by, and I'm seeing so many dead bodies, and I'm really getting humbled what life is all about. If you go to the Ganga River, the Varanasi, for example, and you see the Manuka gut, the something gut, where they burn the bodies, it's so humbling because these were family members, and now it's just constant, burning up the bodies 24/7. I believe it's 24/7. So things like that you see in the river of life, and it matures you up, and you say, it's just not right to keep on being here on this riverbank. I need to jump back in, take the leap of faith, jump back in, and let this river take me. Now, when you jump back in, is the river cold or hot? It's cold. But then the person's own likes and dislikes again step in. I jump into the river, oh no, it's cold, and let me jump back out. Because I want the life to be what I want it to be for me. But life at the beginning doesn't care what it is for you. Life is just life, unfolding according to the past causes that have started way before you and I were here. And I just happen to find myself at one point in time within life in that river. And the river that I got in my lifetime is very different than our parents got in their lifetime, and our grandparents got in their lifetime. So now, can I take the bold step, the courage, to jump in the river and continue flowing in the river that I've been assigned to for this lifetime? If you can, don't expect comfort. That's the secret. Don't expect comfort. If you can go through life without expecting comfort constantly, then the very advantage of that is you will keep on learning extremely quickly. So if you can say, hey, okay, discomfort is going to come, and I gladly admit it, and I want to participate in this journey, and you bring on discomfort on and on and on, you will grow faster than you can have possibly imagined.
Does it mean you look for discomfort, or you just accept it?
Not look for discomfort, although there is something called tapas, for example, where you intentionally deny, maybe less cake for you, less chocolate, or sometimes you will meditate for 10 more minutes instead of the usual 5 minutes. So you will take deliberate steps to make it slightly more intense. And this builds discipline and a certain kind of non-complaining mind, right? Because when you mentally train your mind to go through these tough moments, then life becomes really easy, right? So if there is some kind of a confrontation, and that you are called to go over and ask a question to learn, what the issue is that they have with you, it's not comfortable to do that. Easy thing is just to walk away. But then you say, you know what, I'm going to do something that's uncomfortable. I'm going to go over and say, hey, look, obviously we started on the wrong foot, and I just want to find out what's going on between us. That's not comfortable, right? But when you do that, if you pull through that, you have gone through discomfort, but you have gotten a lesson way bigger than you could have for like one whole year, right? So those moments teach us a lot. Moments of discomfort. But how would you now apply this knowledge in the real world? What might be your steps? You do have your buddhi. It's a good thing. You do have the knowledge, that's a good thing, but is the knowledge always available to you? In times of stress? No. So in times of stress, in times of domestic affairs, you will forget this. Not all of it, but most of it. That is a time when one deliberately remembers some lessons from the class and applies a small teaching. Like, I'm not talking just to my parents, I'm talking to Ishvara in the form of parents who just happen to be associated to this person. That much is enough. And are we talking about positive thinking? So, for example, this is a harmonium. And so how do I now positively think about the harmonium or situation? I just throw an adjective onto it. I say, gorgeous harmonium. Or I'm going through a situation and then I say, this is a situation, but my situation is awesome. It's an awesome situation. Or it's a terrible situation. It's called negative thinking. It's just a situation. So take your adjectives out and just look at the situation. Simple. What?
What goes up must come down.
What goes up must come down. And what is down, needs to restore its place back up. So that's why we sometimes do have affirmations, which I never had any problems with. That is because the person through their lifetime has been putting themselves down, and affirmations simply lift you back up. Now, you have to know that point when you need to stop doing affirmations, because now it just becomes about adjectives. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Avashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.